It happens without warning. You are somewhere completely ordinary. A restaurant you have never visited, a conversation you are having for the first time, a street you have never walked down. And then, with no explanation, the present moment feels hauntingly, impossibly familiar. You have been here before. You have heard these exact words before. You know, with a strange and sourceless certainty, what is about to happen next. And then it passes, as quickly and as inexplicably as it arrived. And you are left standing in the ordinary present, wondering what just happened to your mind. This is déjà vu. And for most of human history, it was interpreted as evidence of past lives, psychic ability, or a momentary tear in the fabric of reality. But the real explanation is stranger than any of those. It is a story about memory, time, and the extraordinary lengths your brain will go to in order to make sense of the world, even when it has to fabricate that sense entirely. It starts with a fundamental truth about how your brain processes reality. You do not experience the world directly. Every sensation, every image, sound, smell, and touch is received by your senses and then reconstructed by your brain into what feels like a seamless, unified experience of the present moment. This reconstruction takes time, fractions of a second, and most of the time the process runs so smoothly that you never notice it is happening at all. But your brain is not just perceiving, it is predicting. The neuroscientist Carl Friston at University College London has spent decades developing what he calls the predictive processing framework, the idea that your brain is fundamentally a prediction machine. Rather than passively receiving sensory input and then interpreting it, your brain is constantly generating predictions about what it expects to experience next, and then comparing those predictions to what actually arrives. When the predictions match reality, the experience feels normal and unremarkable. When they mismatch, you get surprise, confusion, or the unsettling sense that something is wrong. Déjà vu, researchers now believe, is what happens when the prediction system misfires in a very specific way. Your brain generates a prediction that feels like a memory, a sense that this moment has been experienced before. But when it searches its actual memory stores for the source of that feeling, it finds nothing. The familiarity signal is real. The memory it seems to point to does not exist. So where does the familiarity signal come from? The leading explanation comes from research on memory systems in the brain, particularly work done by Akira O'Connor, a cognitive neuroscientist at the University of St. Andrews, who in 2016 conducted the first brain imaging study of people actually experiencing déjà vu in real time. What he found was surprising. The regions that activated during déjà vu were not the memory regions. They were the frontal regions, the areas associated with decision-making, conflict monitoring, and the evaluation of whether memories are accurate. In other words, déjà vu is not a memory malfunction. It is a fact-checking response. Your brain's monitoring system is flagging a conflict, noticing that a familiarity signal has arrived without a corresponding memory to justify it. And the feeling of déjà vu is the subjective experience of that conflict being detected and investigated. Think about what that means. Déjà vu is not your brain confusing the present for the past. It is your brain noticing that something has gone wrong with its own processing and raising an internal alarm. The uncanny dreamlike quality of the experience, the sense that you know something you should not know, is the phenomenological fingerprint of your brain's error correction system doing its job. But why does the familiarity signal arise in the first place without a real memory to produce it? Several explanations have been proposed, and the most compelling involve the relationship between the brain's memory encoding and retrieval systems. Your hippocampus, the brain's primary memory indexing structure, constantly compares incoming experience to stored patterns. When it finds a match, or even a partial match, it generates a familiarity signal. Most of the time, this signal is accurate. The present moment really does resemble something you have experienced before, even if you cannot consciously recall the specific event. But sometimes the hippocampus generates the familiarity signal prematurely, before the full pattern has been processed, or it generates it in response to a partial match that is too weak to produce a conscious memory. You experience the feeling of recognition without the content of what is being recognized. like hearing the opening notes of a song you know but cannot name, except the song does not exist. Chris Moulin, a memory researcher at the University of Grenoble, has done extensive work on a condition called chronic déjà vu, a pathological state in which some patients experience persistent, unrelenting déjà vu that never resolves. In some cases, patients become so overwhelmed by the constant sense of having experienced everything before that they stop watching television, reading newspapers, and going to new places because it all feels redundantly familiar. Moulin's research on these cases provides a window into the mechanism in a way that normal, brief déjà vu cannot. Patients with chronic déjà vu have damage or dysfunction in the temporal lobes, the brain region most associated with memory retrieval and familiarity processing. Their familiarity signal is essentially stuck in the on position. This tells us something important. Normal déjà vu is a momentary version of the same malfunction. The familiarity system fires briefly and erroneously. The brain's monitoring system detects the error, and the conflict resolves within seconds. The fact that it resolves so quickly, that déjà vu is almost always brief, is itself evidence of the brain's correction mechanism working. There is also a relationship between déjà vu and the state of your brain at the time. Research consistently shows that déjà vu is more common in younger people, in people who are fatigued or stressed, in people who travel frequently and encounter many novel environments, and in people with higher levels of education who consume more media and have richer associative memory networks. The more complex and densely connected your memory system, the more opportunities there are for partial pattern matches and false familiarity signals. Interestingly, déjà vu is also significantly more common in people with temporal lobe epilepsy. So common, in fact, that déjà vu is sometimes an early warning sign of an impending seizure in these patients. The temporal lobe is where much of the familiarity processing happens, and when it is electrically disrupted, the familiarity signal can fire uncontrollably. Neurosurgeons have even artificially induced déjà vu by electrically stimulating specific regions of the temporal lobe in conscious patients during surgery. The patients report the experience instantly, the uncanny sense of familiar unreality, and it disappears the moment the stimulation stops. This is one of the most striking demonstrations in all of neuroscience. A specific, identifiable, reproducible experience, one that humans have attributed to the supernatural for thousands of years, can be switched on and off with an electrode. What déjà vu ultimately reveals is something profound about the nature of consciousness and memory. Your experience of the present moment is not a direct perception of reality. It is a construction, assembled from sensory data, stored patterns, predictions, and monitoring systems. And sometimes the construction process produces artifacts. Déjà vu is one of those artifacts. It is a glitch in the rendering engine of your mind. Brief, harmless, and deeply revealing. The uncanny feeling you get, that impossible, sourceless sense of having been here before, is not a message from a past life. It is not a premonition. It is not evidence that reality has repeated itself. It is your brain catching itself making a mistake in real time. And that is a far more extraordinary thing than any supernatural explanation has ever been. The next time it happens, when that strange, familiar shiver moves through you in a place you have never been, you will know what it is. Your brain glitched, and then it fixed itself, in the space of a few seconds, while you were busy living your life, as it has done silently and without credit, every single day of your existence.